A Pulitzer Prize-winning German photographer has been shot dead by a police officer in eastern Afghanistan on the eve of the country's presidential vote. Anya Niedringhaus was killed instantly. Her colleague, Kathy Gannon, was badly wounded. Both women were on assignment for Associated Press in a remote town in Khost, on the border with Pakistan, when their car was attacked. Let's go live now to our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, who's in Kabul.
Good evening, Christian. Well, as we all know, NATO invaded this country 13 years ago to stop a civil war, and they failed. That fact underlined again today in the blood of those who've borne the burden of that war in terms of deaths. The Afghan people themselves, more than 30 killed across the country again today. However, as you say, it is the events in the east of the country which will grab the headlines. Why was it that a senior officer, police officer, walked up to two defenceless, middle-aged Western women and opened fire? With the details, here's our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Jonathan Rugman.
She was a photographer who captured joy in the midst of carnage and fear in the midst of danger. Anya Niedringhaus, dead at 48, like so many agency journalists, not a household name, yet her work gracing newspapers all over the world. This was one of her last photographs. It's on the front of today's New York Times, on the very morning of her death. She was sitting in this car when an Afghan policeman opened fire from just over a metre away, after reportedly yelling, "God is great." She died instantly, her cameras bleeding on the back seat beside her. Her killer quickly surrendered. His motive is not known, though the Taliban have not claimed this killing as theirs. Anya's friend, Kathy Gannon, on the left here, was shot twice. A Canadian reporter with the Associated Press, she's now recovering in an American military hospital, and she's well enough to talk. Taliban or not, they are now shooting journalists after 13 years of occupation and war. In 2005, Anya Niedringhaus helped AP win a Pulitzer Prize in Iraq. She also photographed Wimbledon. "You have to film other things," she said, "so that when you go back to conflict, you can say this should not be happening."
For all journalists, it is our duty to inform as well and as honestly as we possibly can. I used to think that with my pictures, I could stop a war.
The capital, Kabul, is in attempted lockdown ahead of tomorrow's presidential election. And with journalists now targets for the first time, they are more nervous than most. Last month, Niels Horner, a radio reporter and joint British-Swedish national, was gunned down in broad daylight. 9 people were killed in a Taliban attack on this hotel, among them Ahmed Sardar, an Afghan reporter murdered with his wife and 2 children. His 2-year-old son was shot 3 times, but he has survived. Anya Niedringhaus's pictures survive her, a veteran of the world's most dangerous places going back 20 years, now bearing witness no more.